Hello and welcome. I am Danya Shakfeh, and the founding attorney of Motiva Business Law. We are a law firm that serves businesses for their business transactions based in Oak Brook, Illinois. And I have today the wonderful Mr. Justin Reining, the founder of Gig Nexus, which is a business process outsourcing company. So I'm going to have him explain more about exactly what he does. But this is part of our series of interviewing business owners to just talk about their day-to-day challenges and how they overcome them to see their path to success. So thank you, Justin, for coming today.
Yes, thank you as well, Danya, for having me.
Of course. So first I want to start with, why don't you tell us about Gig Nexus? What exactly do you do and who do you serve?
Yeah, so Gig Nexus was founded about a year ago. We serve business owners and entrepreneurs who are very short on time and maybe have a lot of issues revolving their business that they can't solve themselves. For example, my experience, I didn't have much in terms of sales experience. So I can find somebody for you that has 8 to 10 years as an account executive, or if you need experience or help with building out a website, it could be something like that. Or you have a conglomerate number of issues, I can find one person who solves a lot of that. We mainly help people who are just lacking in a lot of time. A lot of business owners around here just don't have the proper amount of time on their hand because they're solving all these different issues. We're here to help.
I can relate to that. I know for me, I've had my law firm for I'm dating myself, 14-ish years, but I didn't get really serious about growth until 4 or 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And yeah, when you're doing everything, it's you feel like you're doing everything, you're so busy, but you're actually not getting anything done. Yeah. You're not moving the needle in your business, and it just feels like a horrible rat race. And I feel like I was always working and never resting, and also not getting anywhere. So hiring staff is usually in most business plans, that's usually what business advisors will tell you, hire. And probably the biggest objection that people have is hire. First of all, it is expensive. It's also a lot of responsibility because now you're responsible for people and all their benefits and the payroll taxes and all these laws that you have to follow. And then also we don't know where to find the talent. So I think a service like Gig Nexus is really good because it increases your possibility because you have the whole world, right? Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit more about that. How do you find the talent for your clientele?
Yeah. So one of the issues, as you had mentioned, is also understanding the W-2 system or 1099, especially with U.S.-based citizens. Yeah. So I find most of my talent outside of the U.S. in countries that I've done a lot of experience with and have come to a conclusion that they're very, very high quality people. Mm-hmm. So what I'll do is, say for example, we're niching down into a business development manager. What I'll do is I'll put out a job posting and I'll specifically niche on a certain personality type within that I know is very effective at that position. From there, I'll garner probably a couple hundred applicants, and then from there parse them out into the top quality applicants. From there, we'll reach out to potential clients with job postings, for example, on LinkedIn or something like that, and we'll say, hey, I've got this applicant. You don't have to worry about W-2. In fact, it's a tax-deductible service.
Yeah.
And it just makes it so much easier for many of these companies, especially smaller entrepreneurs, where hiring is one of the most effective ways on scaling a business and needing to understand, well, how do I go through this entire process and do it in a legally correct way? Right. And it's very, very hard.
Justin, so you've had Gig Nexus for about a year now. What are some of the biggest challenges you've encountered, or particularly one that have perhaps surprised you? Oh my God, I did not expect this to happen as a business owner. What can you share about that?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with how I formulate the ways of finding people. Of course, when you work with other people, it's important to set standards. And in the beginning, my standards weren't as high, but as I've gone through the process, I've set a way of going about things where it is higher, but still understanding of what people are doing and how they act, and say flexible, but still with expectations.
That's such a good point you bring about standards. I know, especially I think as entrepreneurs start out, we tend to shrink ourselves. We really want to get our business off the ground, and we want to take the clients and have people work with us and grow our business. And I think the tendency maybe is to have lower prices or just do like whatever we can. And I think as a result, we lower our standards.
Yeah.
And that, I think psychologically that kind of hurts because we tend to shrink ourselves in that process. So having to kind of realize that and say, okay, no, I'm going to keep my standards high, even if it's going to cost me at the beginning. And I really want to stick to my vision and just holding on tight and being steadfast. It's a challenge, I think. A lot of people don't realize that that's something that you have to actively do. You have to like say yes to your business every single day and say yes to your standards every single day. So I think that's a really important point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Could I expand that?
Yeah.
So to expand on that even more, a lot of times it's actually better to charge more.
Yeah.
Because when you're in that mindset, you now think, okay, well, if I'm charging twice the amount of what my competitors are, what do I now offer in terms of value in that regard? And a lot of times when people see a higher price tag, they also perceive higher value. So when you actually do deliver that higher value, then it's a win-win for both parties.
Yeah, it's just pricing. I always say like charging cheap is, it's a race to the bottom. No matter what, there's someone out there always cheaper than you. And I have found that if you want to attract higher quality clients, yet you need to charge more. One, because you have the resources to be able to provide the value. And I think people, even though they may not want to admit it, I think they will respect you more. If they see you as a cheap service, they're going to want to, it's like you give an inch, they take a mile. And I think that's just human nature. It's not a knack on anyone, in specific. So I found that, charging higher and showing and like proving your value is more useful. Maybe in the short term it hurts, but in the long run, it will result in a better business.
Yeah, I would say it's better to have sort of like a free trial. Charge a little bit more, but have that free trial of a service. Be like, hey, I could do this small project for you. Yeah. And then it gets them hooked because now they can test your quality. Basically.
Right. Justin, why don't you talk a little bit about, so I know we were talking a little bit before about sales. And I know for me, like growing up as a child, I was very shy and, I have a stutter. And so I didn't like doing sales. I always wanted to just hide. And so why don't you talk a little bit about your experience in sales? Because like we were talking about earlier that like you had to read some books and you're trying to understand how sales works. How about you tell us about that?
Yeah. So like you, I was very introverted actually growing up. So I always kept to myself and I would never get out of my bubble. And it took me years. In fact, it was almost my entire life up until these past 2 to 3 years that I was now even able to do something like this. Like this, I would not have been able to do at all.
What was that turning point? That was like, that minute I was just like, I just got to do this. I just got to suck it up and do it.
I was sort of forced into it, actually. Yeah, it was.
That's how it goes usually. You're just forced to do it.
Yeah, it was many hardships. Basically, like I don't come from money, so I didn't have any money. And I was, my body was basically broken. I'm 26, but I still had so many issues physically. And so many medical bills, and at the same time, like I was very unhappy with my job.
Right.
And I was forced into a position where I was like, well, what's the solution to this then? Yeah. And it was starting my own business. And I had started many other before this. A lot of it have to do with like selling products, and that stuff's not easy.
Yes.
I'll tell you. Selling a service is quite a bit easier.
I briefly got into the food industry, which is selling products, and oh my God, like the amount of volume that you have to reach, and like there's so much initial upfront investment that you have to put in. Like we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars because you have to start that mass production to even start seeing a return on your investment. And it's so stressful. And of course, when it comes to like, unless you're like selling something really expensive, like a car, if it's something small or something that you can find on Amazon, then like you're competing with all these people who would just want the cheapest thing. And so now I can totally understand why you switched from like selling products to providing services, because I think the upfront investment is probably lower. Mine is like, for me, obviously there's the law school part, or just like learning the service. And then being able to, but like in terms of like actual equipment to start, it's not as much, and you can see a return faster because you can charge more. Yeah,
I'm very lucky. I'd say I've put maybe about $25,000 into it of my own money into the first year on just basically building out the foundation, because a service like this, you have to build out the trust, and the trust is within a healthy website, within social media marketing, and understanding also your competition and your client base too. Yeah, there was something else, but I lost it.
Well, okay, so why don't you tell us about your ideal client? Not only that, but I'd like to hear how you ended up landing on that ideal client. I think sometimes, at least I know for me, is that I didn't choose my ideal clients. It was kind of trial and error and seeing, like, I didn't start out serving businesses. I started out I did some consumer stuff. I even did a little bit of like criminal defense, family law. And then I just found that I enjoyed working with a certain type of people. And so I'm like, okay, I like this. I'm going to keep trying to attract those people. Why don't you tell me about how you landed on your ideal client?
Yeah. So I would say the ideal client is a business owner. Maybe he's got 5 to 10 employees and he's just handling all the tasks himself. You know, it's very hard for him to step out of doing the work that he does, maybe letting somebody else take the reins on many of those menial tasks. And it's just wasting all of his or her time. Mm-hmm. And somebody like that who I can get an executive assistant for, where now they can handle most of these tasks so that they can delegate their time towards what matters the most, which is growing the business.
Right.
Those are the ideal clients.
I think I really enjoy, for me, like spending time and getting to know and serving people who value their time over their money. Mm. Like, I mean, someone who, for example, if you, like, even something as simple as like, you know, like getting Instacart versus like going to the grocery store. Like you're going to pay kind of a premium, but it's because you save your time. I mean, I've relied so much on that, just because I have 3 little kids. Going to the grocery store is like, I'd rather just not do that. And so like similarly, like if you're in a business, people are just like, I would just rather be comfortable. I would rather just, it's not even like the physical load, but the mental load of like having to wear so many hats, even if it's the same number of hours, which it's never, but even if it was, it's just so taxing. And so I think that's such a great service that you can provide to your clients who are like, okay, business owner, you got way too much on your plate. I'm going to take, you know, like something off and have it outsourced so that you can focus on, because that's why we do business. We are entrepreneurs because we value our time more. There are other things we'd rather be doing. At the same time, we want to help people. And so I think that's a great like compromise on those two things, that where like you still help people and you still employ people, but also as a business owner, you have the freedom of your time and just being able to do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. So. And
on the topic of helping people, I am very grateful for this sort of business model, because now I'm in a position where I can help out not only the business owner, but also the assistant as well. Because now, say they've got a family member, like they've got kids, they could stay at home and work online and be able to spend time with their kids. And at the same time, in many of the countries that I hire from, they're getting paid quite a lot more doing this sort of service than they would be working like in a physical position in that country. So it's helping them, but it's also helping the business owner, because now, like mentioned before, they can allocate that time towards growing the business, which makes more money, which provides more value to the community. And same with the assistant, they're able to provide that money towards the community, and it helps grow other people around them too.
That's a great point too. That's the nice thing about outsourcing, is that you get kind of the best of both worlds in terms of value of money. Mm-hmm. So Justin, if someone wanted to contact you about your services, what is the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, the best way is actually through our website, GigNexus.io.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Justin, for coming. It was great to talk to you. And yes, and thank you to our listeners for watching.
Yeah, and thank you very much for having me, Gail.